All right. Hello, everyone. You're listening to the late morning program with Namras podcast. This is episode 40. This is about Aindra Prabhu. So today I have some really great friends of mine who have joined us. Radha Krishna, Kirtan Premi, Amala Harinam, and Akincana Krishna, all associates of Aindra Prabhu. So I want to just talk about Aindra Prabhu today with you guys and hear a little bit more about him, maybe hear stories and realizations from you all that people may have not heard previously. And just a reminder for all the listeners, you can ask questions in the comments, and we'll take questions for our guests here. But a lot of amazing things about Aindra Prabhu that people don't know. Aindra Prabhu was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who went to Vrindavan about 30 some odd years ago. Actually, maybe more than that now. And he basically devoted his life completely to what's called the 24-hour kirtan, which has been going on for the past 34 years now without breaking the kirtan. So, and he was a very interesting personality, and in some ways, a mysterious personality, a very private personality. But at the same time, he affected so many people's lives all throughout the world due to his kirtan, his personality, his lecturing, his speaking. So we'd like to hear a little bit from our friends here. So thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. So let's start out with just discussing a little bit from each of you when you first went to Vrindavan and what was your first impression of Aindra Prabhu? Let's start with Kirtan Premi.
Um, One of the first things that I remember before meeting him in Vrindavan, actually, like that's the thing, the story goes on way before. This is back in the days in I don't think Aindra Prabhu's albums were that much like uh, like given to people or sold distributed in India as much as it did in America.
Right.
Like everybody talks about Vrindavan Mellows 1, 2. I never heard that. I heard Braj Vilas, and that also, I think in the whole Bombay, it was in the Govinda's restaurant that they had the Braj Vilas 1 and 2. That was it. And that I used to go to the Govinda's restaurant to just relax. It was like a really posh place, nice food, a lot of high society people would come. So as young kids, just to go and some drink water and sit in AC, it's like a really cool thing. So I used to go there, and Aindra Prabhu used to be played constantly over there. And and so at one point I just got clicked to that music, and I used to just and I always thought it was some Bengali dude or some Indian guy.
Everyone saw that, right?
Yeah, like so that was my first, and those days I so my like regular going and sitting for listening to that tracks, that was my main thing. Um, Later on, when I started going to Vrindavan 2003, 4, 5, when I was more independent. Before we were going since 93, 4, 5. My father used to take us every Diwali vacation to Vrindavan, but I never knew who Aindra Prabhu was.
Right.
I still have there's a picture of Aindra Prabhu dancing, and I'm playing mridanga, and I didn't even know, that was him. Yeah, but I was there.
Right.
Um, I think 2004 was the first time uh, I saw him. I was not part of the Kirtan party much, not much in the scene also. I think it was there was a program at Dhruva's house. This is Karthik, so I was doing Kirtan all the time, everywhere. But Dhruva's house on Diwali night, they had a nice kirtan. I think many of Akincana, were you there? I think you were there.
Yeah, definitely
And
had two, at least a couple of programs like that. I remember Diwali at Dhruva's house.
yeah, so that's the first glimpse of seeing who he was.
Nice.
And still, I did not associate those CDs to him.
Right.
It was then in 2008 I came to know more that Braj Vilas and Aindra Prabhu that's when I fully moved from Bombay to Vrindavan, and I saw him. He gave me, brought me in into kirtan, and made me sit and sing with him. So, but that's the thing. At first, I had no idea who he
Right.
was. I think other people around the world knew him more than we in India knew him.
Right. Amal,
So,
what about you?
Um, I would say, well, what's interesting is I went to Vrindavan Gurukula in 1998 for 1 year, and I was 10 years old, and I know my parents had been playing his cassettes in our house. So I knew I remembered the word Vrindavan Mellows, and like the vibe of it. It was like some of the only kirtan I liked to listen to. Otherwise, my parents were like into more like guitar kirtan, Mangalananda Prabhu, stuff like that. Anyways, but I don't have a memory of him during that time because we were going to bed by like 7 o'clock. So we were getting ready. Like we'd have our evening shower at like 5 o'clock. We'd do some shlokas, a snack. Then we're getting ready for bed because we were getting up at 3:30. So I never got to attend his kirtans, and so I have no memories of him, even though I was living across from him, one floor down.
Wow.
But then later on, in my teenage years, throughout my life, I've always been into doing kirtan. It's something that attracted me, and from a very young age, I was like leading Guru Puja, Tulsi Puja, playing mridanga, always enthusiastic like that. But later on, as a teenager, that desire really deepened and became really strong, and I went back to India for the first time since '99 in 2007. And I went in January, February, and I only got to spend about 3 days in Vrindavan. But by that time, I was listening to his kirtans regularly, and I knew kind of like how much he meant. And so we spent every evening going to those kirtans that he would do in the temple room, and it was just like mind blowing to me and whoever I was with. Like in the U.S., obviously there was people doing kirtan, but not in that style of like teamwork. Like if anyone played mridanga, if there were more than one mridanga player, you would have like everyone taking turn for one or two mantras, and that there wasn't that like you never heard two mridanga players playing in sync, the same exact beats and like following the leader and like just even if you watch the video of the New Vrindavan 24-hour kirtan with Akincana Krishna Prabhu singing, he has Ananta Govinda, Vishvambar, and Bali playing mridanga, and they're all taking turns, and it's awesome, it's sick, but it didn't have that like unifying factor, where I guess you could almost say like Aindra Prabhu's team was a band, So to
So that's
see
where you first saw it that's where you first saw people playing together like that?
yeah, I would say that. And I was just like, and then especially I went to Mayapur, he came to Mayapur for the 5 nights of kirtan, and that's really when it's like, okay, like he's got his team and they all like sit around him and everyone's like on the same page, and everyone plays the same thing on kartals and mridanga, and they all help him sing. And that really just awakened the desire in me to go join him and do that and assist him and just serve him in that way. So 2007 was really when I actually like spoke to him, and that desire awakened. And then later in 2008, I went and joined him.
Right. Thank you. Radha Krishna Prabhu. Me and Radha Krishna, I saw you in 2006 there, right?
Yes, that's when we first met.
Yes. Please tell us the first time you met him and first time you saw him and when you went to Vrindavan.
Well, it's like the same like before I went to Vrindavan in Mexico. we didn't have, I mean, at least I didn't have a computer or anything like that. So, the bodies would go to Vrindavan because they won Prabhupada's marathon or like a prize level. You get to go to Vrindavan because you did so many books.
That's cool.
And then they would come back with these recordings of him. And because back then I was listening to, I don't know if you remember, a Spiritual Skyliner.
Oh yeah, they were awesome.
Really mellow, really like totally different thing. So when I heard that, I was like, who is this? And then I tried to like find more about him, but like back then I didn't have a computer. Like it was like 2003, 2002. I was clueless. So then my sisters went to Vrindavan. I think by then my sister Kausalya and Mohini, and then they told me about him too. Like, oh, Aindra Prabhu. And then somehow I got Prayers to the Dose of Raj CD.
Mm.
And then that's it. I was like every single day listening to it.
Wow.
I'm wondering like where do they sing? How? Like who? Like how many? Like in the temple? Is it in the street? Is it under like a hut or what's going on?
The sounds.
Yeah, like all these like peacocks and cows, like they're singing in a stable or something. And then but then like every single day I was listening to that. I knew what was gonna happen at this certain minute, the breakdown, the alap, everything I knew about Praise to Those of Braja. It was like recorded in my head. And eventually, because I had so much desire, I guess, to meet him, I finally went to. I actually met him in Mayapur for the first time. I went with my sister Mohini for Guru Purnima.
Do you remember the year?
What was that?
Do you remember the year?
2005. And then we got to Mayapur. We were so tired, the trains, the plane, everything. And then I was like, I'm going to the temple, like, but I had no idea that he was gonna be there, or I had no idea like anything about him, about where he lives. I mean, I knew he was in Vrindavan, but like, had no idea he was gonna be in Mayapur. So then I rushed to the temple, like tired and hungry. I think I had diarrhea as well. And then I just go to the temple room and I saw Pancha Tattva. Then I was like, then I go closer to the kirtan, where everyone is sitting.
Yeah.
And then from the back, I saw like one guy, white guy, with a chadar on, like a group of like his entourage was like Bhakta Greg, Gopal, Vrindavan, Bhagavad Purana, like Govinda Prabhu, all of them, like. And I feel like, I don't know, like my heart was like, like it was like I was meant to be there with them, like somehow, the right time came into my life for my life to really change in a huge way.
Right.
Then I came closer, and it was Aindra Prabhu sitting, in front of the harmonium. I was like, oh my God, that's Aindra Prabhu, because I had no idea or anything.
Wow.
So then I was like, I asked someone, like, is that Aindra Prabhu? And they were like, no. He's coming. And then I looked, and he was coming. It was like a general coming through all the devotees, walking like with his harmonium, with his chadar, like so mysterious, like so beautiful, like so like, powerful, majestic. And then he sat down, and everyone, like, I sat next to Greg. I didn't know him. And then I was just like listening. And when he opened his mouth, and like you felt like immediately like he was like something was like he was like mystical. And then he did an alap. It's like the first time I experienced an alap, and I think I died for like like because the whole temple was like wow, it was like a huge like bomb like just dropped.
Wow.
And then that's it. Like, he finished his kirtan, and then I was like shaking, because like for so many years I was like, I wanted to meet him, but then I had to be there with my sister Mohini for like the parikrams and all of that. I was like, just go, let's go to Vrindavan, because I went back the next day thinking he was gonna do kirtan, but they told me, oh, he already left to Vrindavan.
Mm.
And then I had to be with my sister for like 1 month in Mayapur, and then I came to Vrindavan, and then it was like, I think like the end of his kirtan, maybe 10 to 7 or something, and then I stood back, from behind the pillars, just looking at him again. So many people, so many devotees. It was like so beautiful. And he finished his kirtan, and then he's like talking to someone, like, untying his bead bag from the harmonium, and then he just like looked behind the pillar, and he saw me, and then he kind of smiled, and he didn't know me at all, and he just goes like that, like somehow, like maybe like it was arranged for us to meet and for us to like
Right.
spend years together. So that felt like okay, that's it. This is where I belong.
Amazing.
And yeah, I never looked back. I
Wow.
stayed there.
Looking forward to hearing about the later years for sure. And Akincana, thank you, Akincana, for doing this. Rajasundar Prabhu actually was not able to join, but Akincana has very mercifully stepped in. Please tell us about when you first met Aindra Prabhu.
Well, I remember the first time I came to the Krishna Balaram temple was for Kartik of 1998. Some friends convinced me to do the Brajmandal Parikram. And so we arrived maybe 1 or 2 days before Kartik began. And when I first stepped into the temple room, I think it must have been mid-morning at some point, and Aindra was leading the kirtan. And it was something like absolutely phenomenal. And actually, I think the way that I saw him that first time, in a way, it was maybe more profound than I'd ever seen him. Even after that, he would follow Chaturmasya. He had like his beard grown out, his hair was grown out. He was kind of, he was in front of his harmonium with his knee up, and maybe he had like some bells on his ankle, and the main thing, like, he was just like looking directly at the deities, and it's like his eyes were like, it looks like his eyes were on fire. It was something like, it's like looking into the eyes of a lion or something like amazing.
Right.
And the way that he sang, it was like this like super desperate call to Krishna. Like something I'd never seen before. I had joined in the Tawako temple. Namras was like 12-year-old little skinny Indian kid that played mridanga. I was so envious that you were just a little kid, but you could play mridanga. I thought that was so awesome. So I lived in the Tawako temple for some months. I definitely, our kirtans had its moments. There were like maybe a couple of kind of fired up, ecstatic, exciting kirtans. But frankly speaking, most of my time in the temple, like the kirtan felt like it was just kind of a ritual. In this, it was kind of like a little bit dry. There was one Mataji in the temple that could like lightly play the mridanga a little bit. I'm talking about for like the morning programs for the people that were residents there. At the Sunday feast, people like you or other congregation members, they could play instruments. But in terms of the people that were living in the temple, there was one Mataji that could like lightly play very simple beats on the mridanga. And if she didn't come to Mangalarti, like that was it. It was just kartals. And so the kirtan that I was used to was very simple. And when I first saw Aindra, like the way he was just, crying out to Krishna, And also his singing obviously was like so beautiful, and there was just so much style of his expression. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this is what kirtan is supposed to be. Like, now I get it. But I didn't really understand what it was, but now I get it. This is what it is. It's like someone like completely crying for the mercy of Krishna. So that was like a very, very strong impression, even just that first kirtan. And then, I had a few other experiences. Like I said, I went on Brajmandal Parikram, and at the time of Bahulastami, Aindra did his kirtan at the Gopalji Mandir, like next to Radha Kund. He did his kirtan after the midnight bathing. It was crowded, but not crowded like it would become in later years. And that kirtan was also like completely life-changing, like a very, very exceptional, powerful thing. I remember there were a few candle lights in front of the deities. That was the only light in the room. And Aindra was like crouched down. He didn't have a harmonium. He was playing wampers. And like, I remember his head was shaking, and Madhava was playing mridanga. And it was just something like really next level, otherworldly. Everyone in the kirtan had just taken bath in Bahulastami. And yeah, that kirtan was so profound and powerful. I remember feeling in that kirtan, like part of me during the Brajmandal Parikrama was thinking like, I don't know, why did I get so into this Hare Krishna thing? It's like a little kind of, maybe I was too crazy to like go so much into this, and I should be like more like a regular guy, And after that kirtan, I just felt like, wow, like whatever I had to sacrifice to witness that was completely worth it. Whatever those guys did to be able to do something so beautiful and so profound like that kirtan, like that's what I want to do. I want to try to figure out what they've understood, what they've figured out, because that was like one of the most amazing, like profound experiences of my life, at least especially up to that point. And even later, we heard, even Aindra himself said that way. Gopal told me Aindra said that after that kirtan, he said, that's the best kirtan I've ever been in my entire life. So you can get an idea of like what it was. It was something very, very powerful. Anyway, so
Was that
during
99?
What's that?
Was that 1999?
No, that was 98.
98.
And I haven't seen any recordings of that. I've seen other, maybe 97. I've seen other years listed, but I've never seen a recording of that. But also around that time, I was able to, I must have several others of his kirtans. I met Aindra Prabhu. I went up to his room a few times. He preached to me. I got a taste of his like amazing personality. Anyway, and then, yeah, it started from there.
Right. Thank you. We always hear about like Radha Krishna said, and like you said, the analogy of a lion and like a general and things like that. So that's like kind of his like very serious and kind of tough, you could say, side. But let's talk a little bit about maybe some experiences of his softer side, maybe a joking side or like a more fatherly side. So Amal, why don't you start out?
Well, without thinking too hard, off the top of my head, a really sweet interaction I had with him was 2009 Govardhan Puja. And for whatever reason, I started to feel a little ill. And the Abhishek Kirtan was around 10 o'clock, 10:30. And in that Kirtan, I was sitting right next to him, but feeling a bit fatigued. I think I could feel like, you know, a fever coming, illness. And I was a little spaced out. And I just remember him like looking at me a few times, like, get into it, you know, like, what, like, let's, come on, help me out. And I think I told him I'm not feeling good. And he, like, in the middle of the kirtan, he put his hand on my forehead and just felt it. And he was like, you've got a fever. And I was like, oh no. And he took a fisherman's friend and he just threw it in my mouth and said, come on, let's do this, you know? So like, he knew I wasn't feeling good, but he gave me that extra like encouragement and showed me he cared, but that, like, you know, this is something we can push through. Like, you know, it's a yagya, so we can make this little sacrifice just for the next hour and a half or whatever. And then I really wasn't feeling good after the kirtan. I ran and put my stuff upstairs. It's up, like, you know, 3-4 flights of stairs. And I put my stuff in the room and I came back down. My parents were living in the MVT and I was going to go over there and just take a nap because I knew I wouldn't be disturbed there. And so I was going down the stairs and he happened to be walking up alone, just carrying his harmonium. And so he just said, oh, so you're not feeling good? I was like, yeah. He said, Amal, you're not allowed to get sick. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we need you out. We need you there. So, you know, like, you're not allowed to get sick, and, you know, do whatever you need to do. Go take rest, but get better as fast as you can because we need you in the kirtan. And so he just showed, when someone tells you just that you're needed, it's like one of the most important feelings, you know, of acknowledgement that you can receive. So, you know, like, that's why I'm there, is to serve his 24-hour kirtan and ultimately, you know, make him happy, because I felt that desire that this is my connection to Krishna and I want to make him happy. And so to see that he was happy that I had pushed through feeling ill to participate in the kirtan, and then just, you know, encourage me by making me feel like I got to do whatever I can to get back into the kirtan, made me feel like, really, I remember I said, okay, Prabhu, I'll go take rest and try to get better as fast as I can. And I just went down the stairs the rest of the way, just like, you know, with a spring in my step. I just felt really, really loved by him. So that's one experience that comes to the top of my head.
Nice. Radha Krishna?
There's so many. I mean, I guess the one I like the most is when he cut my hair, kind of, because I wasn't attached to my hair, but the way I looked without it. You know, my sister Mohini, like, when we first came, like, I had my long hair or whatever, and then I shaved once, and she's like, you look like a watermelon. You know, like, and that, like, it kind of like stayed in me. So when I was living in the ashram, like, I didn't have like long hair because we wouldn't allow it, but it was like, you know, long enough for him to be like, you have to cut it. So I was going to take a shower and he was coming out of the bathroom, and then the barber was there. You know, one guy would come and shave all the brahmacharis like once a month or like every whatever. So he was like, oh, Radha Krishna, like you haven't cut your hair yet. And then he grabbed my arm and sat me down in the chair and took the guy's razor, and he just like started to shave me.
Oh my God.
But he didn't go all the way. He just like started it, you know, so I couldn't get out of it, you know, because I don't want to go back, you know, like spot, you know.
All right.
So then he's like, he told the guy, like, finish him off. and then he left like smiling. And then he finished, and then I looked in the mirror and I was like, it was like blade shape, like full on.
Yeah.
But like whatever, like it's not that bad. And Aindra Prabhu, will be happy, and is the standard to live in the brahmacharya ashram. All these things all came to my head. So when he saw me afterwards, he's like, Jai! He was so happy. He was like, you look so beautiful with your tilak and your shaved head. It's like you have made Mahaprabhu so happy. And he's like, even if you look like a watermelon. So, like he was like everything he did, he was for our own benefit and because he cared. Because he wouldn't, like, this is the order and you have to shave. No, it was like he wanted, the whole thing to be like perfect and just to be pleasing for Prabhupada, for the standards of the brahmacharya ashram, for, to please Mahaprabhu. And then another one is like my niece Devayani, he had malaria. She had malaria, and then she was like really sick, and Kalini was like, oh, we should take him to this doctor that Aindra Prabhu went to, what's his name, Shamasaki, the tantric doctor. And then because I knew that Aindra Prabhu had it too, many times a couple told me that he even dragged him to the hospital, And then I was like, Aindra Prabhu, like, what can we do? Because my niece has malaria, this and that. So it's like, oh, I have the medicine. Like he had his personal, like they were like pills, like these big balls, black balls. I don't know what it was. So then he gave me a whole list of what to do. Like she has to take this time, and she has to take this one that time. So he cares so much, for everyone, like even like the little things, this is nothing, but like because everyone has the perception that he's so strong, that he's so like rigid, and he's so like, like he doesn't really care, but like he's like totally the opposite, everything he did was because he cared. So like that.
Wow, very nice. Kirtan Premi?
Like while these guys were talking, I had many stories. Yeah. I think one of the most beautiful aspect of his care, and that was the most amazing part, is that when the guru wants to make a relationship with you, it's always like we try our hard to connect to our seniors. Like we will make the effort to be there for kirtan. We will be there. Like Amal said, like how Aindra Prabhu cared about him. Aindra Prabhu did that with many of the kirtan members. He really cared about his people, and he knew what they meant for him. Who like, and he like they were colorful. Like we had people of all varieties, weird temperaments, like this one doesn't work with that one, that all that, colorful singing, all that, like colorful cooking. Yeah, colorful cooking, and so many different aspects were always there. But one of the things was in 2009 when we went for Mayapur, when Mahabhishek, and before that, 2008, when in Kartik I came and I stayed with with the kirtan party. I never joined the ashram. I never lived in the ashram. I had a house outside, so I used to just join the kirtan, the shifts, and I used to and I always got mixed feelings from Aindra Prabhu, so I never knew what. Like he wanted me to be there, and he's like,
What do you mean mixed feelings?
So first was he always wanted me to be there, so he would always make me sit and sing with him.
Right.
Then I asked him personally that I live outside. I need can you give me 2 slots because I was all over the place. You're in Vrindavan, you go to Radha Raman temple, you go here, everywhere. So I requested that you give me 2 slots, and I will, with full heart, do that. Because you said you should do that. He said, I don't take responsibility.
I remember he said that same thing to me. I asked as well.
Mhm.
I was living outside, and he said, "You're welcome to come as much as you want, but I'm not gonna tell you what to do."
Yeah.
Basically, until you like kind of surrendered it, like under his care, he wouldn't do like that.
Yeah. So that was like when he did that, I felt like, okay, I'm not part of the party.
Oh yeah.
So I always felt like I'm part of the party. I'm not part of the party.
I see. Okay.
So I always had that mixed feeling that, okay, I don't know where I am. And so when we went to Mayapur Kirtan Mela, I remember this. So before we started doing kirtans, when he just arrived, Gopal met me on the way, and Gopal had his Luna, and he was like, "Oh, Aindra Prabhu is here." And I was like, "Oh, Luna is a moped, by the way."
Okay.
And he drove us to where Aindra Prabhu was staying. And I met Aindra Prabhu, and Aindra Prabhu said, "Okay, so you're here. That's nice, really good." He said, "I want you to be there in the evening." And I remember that year, I think Bali, Kish, Madhava was there, Vishwambar was there, everybody was there. Senior Kirtan members are there who have been doing Kirtan for more than what we are doing, So me and Amal would just sit in the sidelines, in his Kirtan. And I still remember, because I think Aindra Prabhu made that melody that year, right? You remember?
Yeah.
If you
Oh no, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Yeah.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama.
Hare Hare. That
And
was a good signature for Mayapur, right?
Yeah, the whole November, December, we did that, every evening. Not in a week, we would do 5 times that melody. So that, because that was our reveal is in Mayapur, for Panchatattva, it rocked
Right.
the whole crowd, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was like, "I want you to be there." And because all these senior people were there, we just sat in the back.
It
We
was
didn't want
so packed that it was so daunting to walk through the crowd and make people move, and you're like, am I really required or needed?
Right.
Everyone's already there. You don't if you were just late, I mean, you couldn't get in on the Abhishek day. It was packed outside of the doors. So, but I think he saw us.
Yeah,
on the edge.
He was. I mean, we were there, and then it's at that time, my fiance was like, "Go in. You guys were doing kirtan for so long. Go in." And we were like, "They're all senior guys over there. We don't want to step in." And
all the swamis are there too.
Yeah,
Right,
and it's so apparent when you just walk through everybody and sit next to him. So I was just like, stay back.
Yeah.
And then after some time, my mind just got disturbed. It got I want to be there, but I cannot be there. And so I just got up and I just walked away, and I stood on the side where all devotees were standing and dancing. And I just and I internally, I had this kind of battle, he wants me, he doesn't want me. He wants me, he doesn't want me, And I just closed my eyes and I just said, Aindra Prabhu, if you are you really want me to be there, you will call me to be there. So, and in 10 seconds, he looked at me, I was on the sideline. He just looked at me and he called me, and I just walked through the whole crowd and sat next to him. Wow. And then he just went into my ears and he's like, "Where were you for all these days?" He was looking for us, while we were sitting there, but we were not here. And
right.
And later he said, we practice and all, I want you to be there. So he really cared, even for such small things, but it meant a lot. Participation was such an important thing for him. And the same thing, he really cared for me. That was one of the things. And the funny part was not that happened with me. It was some other devotee. there was this one devotee he used to have Mahaprabhu on his head and dance.
Oh yeah, right.
If you remember it, yeah, deities in his head.
He had an altar,
Yes.
and he would dance in all the kirtans. Gorni Tai would be dancing on his head.
And Aindra Prabhu was very good at like shaligrams. Means he had so many shaligrams. He brought his box of shaligrams to Aindra Prabhu. He was like, Aindra Prabhu, I got these. Can you, check what different
Authenticity.
Yeah, what shaligram is what. And Aindra Prabhu was taking one, looking at, and one he took and he rubbed it on the ground.
Really?
Yeah. When he did
Why?
that devotee was in like full shock. Like he was like, and I'm like looking at Andrew, what's he doing? And then Andrew was like, this is MCO. And he gave it to him. It's like, those bond things, and it just like
It's like a plumbing. It's like a plumbing putty that turns hard, right?
yeah, and it's like black. But he knew. He just looked at it and he just rubbed it. He didn't do that with any other shaligram.
Yeah.
And we were like, I was like laughing, like anything.
Wow.
He was like, comedic in that way.
Right. Wow. Akincana, what about you?
Okay, so the question was sweet memories of Aindra in a sweet mood, right?
Right. In a soft mood, yes.
Yeah, I'll all these memories have like triggered a whole laundry list. I've been trying to take notes.
Same.
Let it flow. Let the nectar flow.
When I first joined, the first time I joined the Kirtan party, I remember one Kirtan he was doing. There was a very small group of us, and our relationship was maybe newer, and he kind of needed to reach for a high note in one of the melodies that he was singing, and kind of he couldn't quite get it, but I understood what he wanted to sing, and I kind of like sang up to that note, and when I did that, he just kind of like looked at me and he like turned his face and he just had like this blissful, huge, beaming smile, and I just felt like a tremendous amount of love and appreciation from him. There was one time my Guru Maharaj, he got a set of deities that he wanted to bring to America for some Grihasta devotees to worship. And my Guru was like very enthusiastic about the beauty of those deities. And so he brought them up to Aindra Prabhu. And they were brass deities, maybe like, I don't know, a foot and a half or so high. And they had some type of cloth like wrapped on them. And so my Guru Maharaj, he kind of went and he introduced, I'm bringing these deities. They're so beautiful. I wanted to show them to you. What do you think, Aindra Prabhu? And so Aindra kind of like, he started peeling the cloth off of the deities. And at first, okay, it was normal, but it kind of became a little bit like, intimate, like he's just going to take all of their clothes off like right now. And he kind of had like this naughty, mischievous kind of, mood to him. And especially when the deity of Radharani was totally revealed, just like in his childlike way, he looked at her and he said, she's completely in the nude. And he said, my Guru was like a little bit like, he became a little shy or something. And then Aindra said, he said, I think only somebody with a very high standard of Krishna consciousness should worship these deities. Otherwise, maybe it would be a good idea, if you were to cover the deity in some way so that her entire form is not revealed like this. And then he kind of like thought for a second, like also like in a mischievous kind of mood. And he said, but if I was worshiping her, I would keep her this way. Anyway, that was a very nice one.
Wait, you mean about the deity, like a lot of the times they carve in or paint underwear on them, and these deities didn't have that?
Right. I see on the deity of Krishna, I don't remember, but on the deity of Radharani, there was no kind of already covered.
Right.
There was nothing in her form was like completely natural, I guess.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I could keep going, but you please stop me when it's time.
Tell one more, and then I'll get into something else.
Only one more. Okay.
We have to tell sweets for the sweeties.
Well, there's one. I don't know. Some of these are a little. Well, here's a good one. Here's a good one that I've told many times, I think. There was one day where Aindra Prabhu came into the ashram, and there was one devotee on the party that he was thinking maybe was not keeping like a very high standard of brahmachari behavior. And so he was kind of challenging that person, and he went into a whole thing about the importance of brahmacharya and also the importance of wearing kopins. And later that same night he had a home program, which maybe people know, where he had like the kopin kata. But anyway, he came out like fire and brimstone, the kind of comments that he made to us in the room that day. And when, what's that?
You mean the lecture, or you mean the?
Well, the lecture also, that's recorded, but I'm saying how he spoke to us in the room. He made very strong comments, and on the point of he told us how to tie the kopins correctly. He said, Vrindavan life means sadhu jivan, and sadhu jivan means kopin. The 6 Goswamis wore kopins. And even if you have an idea that you'll give up the sadhu life and you'll get married at some point, still now is the time when you're living in our ashram. You should take the training fully, and you should accept kopins. So you can't really overstate how heavy, how fiery, how intense Aindra was when he was preaching like that. It was hardcore. It was like a little scary, actually. Like I was like, he was focused on one devotee there, like ripping into that person, and I was just completely horrified if he was going to turn his attention to me and start ripping into me. So that's Aindra Prabhu in his fiery mode. When it was time to preach and to speak strongly, he spoke strong like nobody else. It was, powerful. It had so much shakti, so much purity, and it was horrifying in a way, because it was like everything was revealed. He spoke the naked truth so strong. And then the next, and by speaking that way, several of the devotees in the ashram, that previously weren't wearing kopins, they started wearing kopins. And I noted that. And I think 1 or 2 days later, I was in Aindra Prabhu's room, and I said, "Hey, Prabhu, the way that you spoke to us the other day, I think a lot of people took it to heart, because I'm seeing that these guys, they started wearing kopins." And Aindra, in a completely like sweet, innocent, completely unassuming way, he was like, "Oh, really? That's great." And what I felt was, he was like, when it was time to tell the truth and to speak like in a strong way, he spoke so strong. But he was kind of like very unassuming, you could take it or leave it, and he just had like this real childlike sweetness about it. And when I said that people were following it, he's like, "Oh, that's great news."
That's really interesting. Like you're saying, how he spoke very strongly, and he was just speaking the truth. And in some ways, that could some people didn't understand him. So I feel like he was let's talk a little bit about why you feel maybe he was a misunderstood person, because I think he was, right? Any of you who want to jump into to answer that, please do. What was it about him, or why do you think he was misunderstood sometimes? Because he was speaking the truth all the time?
I think can I say something about
Please,
that?
yeah, go ahead.
There was a senior devotee whose name is not coming to my mind right now. He told me a beautiful comment after Prabhu left. He said, in order to understand Aindra Prabhu, first you have to love him. And for myself, you know, just from the beginning of my relationship with Aindra, I found him like an incredibly attractive person, and you know, all the things that he was doing, the way that he spoke, like it entirely resonated with me, and I just really wanted his association. And so for me, I feel like there was never a misunderstanding. I always like greatly appreciated who he was and what he was all about. But I think very strongly, just like Srila Prabhupada, right? If you look in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, there's a time for a guru, for a sadhu to speak strong and sharp and heavy, and that may be, you know, appropriate and what's needed in order to help people come out of illusion and come to the point of Krishna consciousness. And so Aindra had the kind of purity and moral authority to be able to do that, and he took it upon himself to do that. And sometimes it's very, very painful to hear the truth. I think even, you know, Srila Prabhupada has many strong statements that, you know, some of his followers don't necessarily know how to digest or how to deal with. And so maybe they prefer to kind of sweep that to the side. So Aindra was a person who could put very strong truths like right at the forefront, speak very strong with a tremendous amount of purity, a tremendous amount of personal integrity. And I think that it can be a little too much to handle for some people. And so if there's a misunderstanding, definitely I think that's a significant part of the reason for that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think part of that about being able to speak the very I don't know, real truth, and in presenting the formula given by our acharyas and Srila Prabhupada for coming to the point of loving Krishna in a personal relationship. I think he was like, what's that word when you like when you're not unforgiving, but like you don't let anything, like there's no excuse, like there's no anyways, but you know, he was he wouldn't let anything kind of like get in the way of that, or of like
You wouldn't
giving that
compromise?
message. What's that?
You wouldn't compromise anything?
Right. Like there's no compromising what it takes, you know, to attain that. And ultimately he's trying to share with everyone that that's the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, of our movement, of the Sankirtan movement, why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. So I think when there's a very clear goal in mind, that helps in understanding the steps needed to achieve that goal. And he understood and got those steps, and he wanted to share those steps with others. And so all he did was basically meet devotees and people and see maybe where they're at and understand maybe this is the next step they need to take. And maybe the best way I can help them is by telling them what they're doing or not doing that needs to change, you know. And part of that is he never accepted any formal disciples, so he had no, he didn't have to compromise, like you said. Anyone's like interpersonal relationships He didn't have to deal with that. You know, if someone, he wasn't like afraid, like Akincana is saying, to like speak that truth, because what's to, you know, like he's not going to lose anything. He's not interested in name, fame, glory, and accumulating wealth or disciples. So what does he have? He just has his relationship with Krishna. And it meant so much to him that he just wanted to share that. And people are going to get offended along the way, then they're not on the same page about what the goal of the Sankirtan movement is. So that's kind of how I feel.
I think that whenever there is some instruction, it means you have to give up something. It means responsibility. And many people aren't ready for that, because many people are comfortable with their situations, thinking that where I am is, probably it is, but like there's always, you know, a higher step, you know. So Aindra Prabhu, like, I mean, to my eyes, with my whatever little vision I have, like he was in a very, very high, you know, level. So like Amal said, when you want to share something truthful, because no one is ready for that, you know, then they start criticizing you, they start seeing you, you know, in a different way, they start probably even have, you know, feeling envy, you know.
Right.
And it's really dangerous. But I mean, I don't think many people like really thought like, oh, Aindra Prabhu is like that, you know, like really heavy or like even hateful sometimes, you know. You can tell he had like this understanding, and also the practice, you know, backing him up, about that everything that he said, he went through it and he experienced it, and he reached the level of like, he transcended, for example, like those anarthas, you know. And then because he was in that level, he wanted to share that, you know, like he always would say, like, if Aindra Prabhu can do it, anyone can do it, you know. So I think that, you know, like even now people aren't ready for the truth, especially now, like these times are like, you know, like so different, you know, like you say a little thing, everyone is offended. You say a little thing, everyone leaves the movement. Imagine, you know, like, you know, so, and like Akincana Prabhu said, like, I don't have a problem with that, because I was like dismantled, you know, when I came to Vrindavan, and like I built up on what I saw from him, on what I heard, you know. It wasn't like artificially I wanted to be like him, because I cannot be like him. No one can be like him, because, you know, like he went through a lot of practice, you know, 40 plus years to reach the level that he was, you know. So like to me it was like nectar, you know, like all these things, you know, all this heaviness, all these instructions, all this, like, you know, everything was like, I was like collecting from everywhere, you know, like,
Because it was built on the love that you had for him, and then you were saying
love, experience, and purity, you know, everything he had.
right.
So everything that was coming out of him, of his mouth, of his actions, everything, like the things I saw, like it was like building me up, you know, even though it was hurtful or heavy, or like, you know, it would, you know, it was against my, you know, like my pride, my ego, like everything. Like he would destroy it with his example, you know. And it was an example that, you know, like, you have to do this. No, he was like showing you how to do it. Every single thing that he talked about. So yeah, it can be heavy for you, but, you know, it's helpful, you know. It's what it is. You cannot water it down, you know, because then you know, you can accept something watered down, and then you're gonna be fine. And someone else is gonna come and like the level of purity goes down, and he had like the highest, purity to me, this is my personal experience. So it didn't affect me, but I mean, like, I guess eventually, like, it's like a parent, like, like they do something, they tell you something, and then like maybe in a few years you realize that, oh, he was right, and he loved me and he cared for me and he cared for everyone. He cared for like when he was in Kirtan, like he would, no matter where you came, like if the bodies from Delhi would come for Kirtan, he would engage them. If like the Russian army would come for Kirtan, he would engage them. If he like the Brajabasis, like anyone.
Yeah,
So
much. You would see tourists in later years because it was so close to it is so close to Agra, the Taj Mahal. It's kind of on the way from Delhi. So these tour guides would take big groups of there was a lot of European tourists that would come through the temple, and they would come at that time, and I was like, dang, there's a huge crowd of white people here, and someone would ask them, and a lot of the time they'd be like Polish or something, but he would he would connect, like you think, he would connect with everyone no matter who you were, and like make eye contact, and by signaling with his body movements that you have a part to play in this what you don't even know what it is, but start clapping and start grooving, because that's what Sankirtan is. It's engaging everyone around you. But yeah, I didn't want to, Radha Krishna, if you have something more to share. Oh.
We lost Radha Krishna. He'll come back. Akincana, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, one thing is, I think Aindra had a certain persona, and if you didn't come close to him, he may have looked scary. For a few years, I was collecting interviews for a biography of Aindra Prabhu that we hope will be released at some point. And I interviewed. It's not an easy project. I interviewed several ladies about Aindra Prabhu, and I interviewed ladies that knew him in the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. In other words, for the whole span of Aindra's career, we talked to different ladies that knew him, and every lady. What's that?
Very interesting.
Yeah, and every single lady, including Radha Krishna's sister Kalindi, who gave a beautiful interview, every single lady said the exact same thing. They all said, I was so scared of Aindra. I thought he was going to be so heavy. I thought he was going to be so mean. But when I spoke to him, he was the nicest person.
Wow.
They all said that. And here's another memory. We just honored the disappearance of Mother Yamuna a few days ago. And when Aindra Prabhu suddenly left, I had done an interview with Aindra Prabhu. I think it must have been in the spring of 2009, quite a lengthy one. Like, I think on the recording it must be 4 hours worth of his speaking, and the interview included huge amounts of his realizations about the holy name, about Sankirtan, and about Krishna consciousness, pure devotional service. And when Aindra Prabhu suddenly passed away, we published that interview, and one of the people that we sent it to was Mother Yamuna. And Mother Yamuna, she expressed a lot of appreciation for that interview. I mean, because the interview is like, it reveals the mind of Aindra. You're hearing so many of his very personal realizations about chanting. And what Mother Yamuna said was very interesting. she said, I had heard something about Aindra from my god sisters, and it seems that she had had a mixed impression of Aindra. She in other words, from a distance, she had a mixed feeling or a mixed impression about him, what kind of person he was. And what she said was, after she read that interview, you know, Mother Yamuna was she was part of the Krishna Balaram Mandir from the very, very beginning. Her husband was the first temple president, and, you know, she did a huge amount of the groundwork in Srila Prabhupada's time, establishing that project. And she said Srila Prabhupada really wanted to establish a 24-hour kirtan, but it was a very challenging, you know, program to start, and the devotees were not able to do it and maintain it, you know, at length. And Mother Yamuna said that she prayed to Radha Shyama. She said, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed to Radha Shyama to please send somebody that can establish this 24-hour kirtan. And she said, now that I've read this interview with Aindra Prabhu, now I'm really appreciating what a beautiful devotee they sent to do the 24-hour kirtan. So the point I wanted to say is, from a distance, when people are not close to Aindra, there may be something about his quality that is a little unnerving, makes people nervous. People aren't really sure how to take him. But I think when people come close, when they speak to him, when they get to know him, when they hear from him, then they can appreciate what incredibly, you know, beautiful devotee Aindra is. So I ought to say that, you know, if people have a misunderstanding, it may just be that they haven't, you know, gotten the benefit of his association.
Right. Kirtan Premi, what about you?
I was so you cannot realize a person until and unless he is gone.
A lot of people can.
People cannot realize the person because, yeah, people can talk heavy, you know, and say something heavy, but then they do something opposite. They don't walk the talk. They don't live that life. You know, I mean, I didn't know so much things about Aindra Prabhu. I was not like so close to him. He chastised me so many times. Many of the times I just heard it from one side and took it out from the other side. It's like okay, you know, didn't digest it, you know. But later in time, I started to realize what it really meant. What is he really trying to say, or you know, and like I always thought his mood was always very like passionate, very expressive. His style of kirtan was very expressive. Same his, like, you know, you sit in the kirtan, it's just like always like a fire, like, you know, he's gonna chop your head off, kind of like, don't space out.
No
lazy
kirtan.
Yeah. And the same thing with his words. When he would speak, he would just be like, you know, in your face. He would just say the things which is Shastra, and he would not like misquote or say something out of his own conception, like, you know. You know, when I heard Manidi Maharaj give that what do you call, offering, his when he passed away, and he spoke about Panchanga Bhakti and of how Aindra Prabhu was the master of all 5 forms of bhakti.
Right.
And that
really hit me.
That hit me very heavy because I could see him live that. When he passed away, the very next day after that, what one man did, we needed 11 to 12 people to do his job. You understand? Like, managing his DD service, managing Kirtan Seva, doing, you know,
DD worship.
Yeah, there was like 4 or 5 guys doing DD worship. There was like, you know, all that. Like, so there was, we could realize how much this one person can. He was like, you know, his kirtans were amazing, you know. he did dhambas, like really, like he wanted to live in Vrindavan, like he didn't want to go anywhere. And he had that same Prabodhananda Saraswati's mood, which like, you take me out, I'll kill you. You know, that kind of mood, you know. And because he went to Delhi so many times, he was just like, I don't want to go there. And he just had to go for his book, you know. So he, and his DD worship was amazing, beautiful. People like Mayapura, they did that whole thing,
worship course, and he was a guest speaker.
yeah. And,
Right.
and his dressing of Radhesham is signature. Everybody loves it. And you know, and Mukundatta Prabhu always tells about the sweet stories of him dressing the DDs, and you know, all rasas.
One
You
would
know,
dress Sham, one would dress
one
Radha.
time Radharani took Krishna's flute, and like all this rasa. So the expression is very heightened. And the thing is, when you are not on a level to understand, you will not understand and you'll criticize. So it's better to just stay for, you know, wait for some time. You can't
to
just
digest who he
yeah.
is.
Many people couldn't digest what a person he was, and came to, because they have learned that this is the quality of a devotee. He should have a tilak, and he should be, you know, and Vaishnava Prad can have yeah, should have a kurta and have pleated dhoti. The pleat should go this way, or or shaven hair. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just
Right.
saying, like this one of the comments Prabhupada said that he would like to have 10 or 12 devotees to live like Goswamis in Vrindavan. That was his wish. And if
Prabhupada said that.
Prabhupada said that,
Really? Wow.
and like dress like the 6 Goswamis, and you know, like live very simple, you know, the way that 6 Goswami lived, you know. I cannot really quote where it is from, but I've heard it through in a lecture. I'm very bad at like Shasik, so please don't
yeah,
don't lynch me.
So but he took that on, right?
But like his you know, sometimes his dressing style, or him having long hair, like people misunderstood that because, oh, shaven, that's how it should be, all with long beard, you know. But he was doing Chaturmasya. He was not having long hair all
There was
through.
no styling.
Not like us. You know, he was not like.
If he shaved, it was the whole head. Just everything
Yeah.
at once.
And it was his Chaturmasya, not Chaturmasya. He would do 4 months, then he would do Kartik Vrat, then if it was Purushottam, then there would be 6 months of Vrat that he would do. So like, there's all that, like, you know. So I think devotees should realize who he is before coming to conclusions with what he has to say. And I feel that when a person is actually tasting rasa, tasting the holy name, they're more like, why don't you taste this? Here, take it.
Why do
taste
you
it.
want to?
Yeah, like, why you are so engrossed in this material world? Get up, you know, wake up. And I know we always have that mood. Another person had that mood is Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He would just like, you know, get on people's case. And his lectures are most intense to watch because he would just like rip the whole front row.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
But he presented such amazing disciples. He gets such beautiful instructions, and that's the thing, you know. I think it's very misunderstood. But I really loved what Akincana Prabhu said. This is the first time I'm hearing Mother Yamuna's realization.
She told me that too.
What did she say?
What Akincana said, how
Oh, right.
she's come to appreciate Aindra Prabhu
Mm.
after understanding what a perfect person Radhe Shyam brought for that service.
What about his loyalty to Srila Prabhupada? Sometimes people also can maybe doubt that he didn't look like a Prabhupada disciple per se. He didn't sometimes, you know, his strong speaking and maybe rubbing people the wrong way. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I would say the same. Like I just for that question also is like, you know, if you actually see there's like there's a mold that's been created that this is how everybody should be. And
And
If
he didn't
you
fit into.
if
He
you
didn't fit
do
into the
more
mold.
than 16 rounds, you are like doing ati bhakti. You know, ati bhakti is chorer lakshan. Prabhupada used to say that. It's too much devotion service is a thief's behavior.
Mm.
But why not you find people who want to do 64 rounds and who are intimate and who are like quiet, who are have different rusts, you know. I just feel that it's very misunderstood.
Mm.
Yeah, we had kind of talked about this in preparation for this discussion before. Kinshana, you weren't there. One of the topics that came up was about his offering to Srila Prabhupada on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day in 2009, and kind of the how it was received, how it was given, and the aftermath of it, and kind of what was how he was kind of treated after that. And so just maybe like a little synopsis. Like, I wasn't actually even present for it, but I just remember I remember in the aftermath, even my mother being like, "Oh, did you hear like what the offering Aindra Prabhu gave?" And she was there, and I think she kind of didn't understand it so well. But you're asking specifically about him being a Prabhupada man, and I think there was no doubt, at least to those of us who were close to him, about his intense desire to serve Srila Prabhupada and loyalty to his movement by reminding as much as he could about the true purpose and goal of that movement, which is to perform Sankirtan, and through that means develop your personal loving relationship with Krishna. And so when he gave this offering, he was, misunderstood by many. First of all, they didn't give him the space to speak. They put him right at the end, and then, gave him such a short amount of time, and then said, you got to finish early. And so, Rajasundar had a lot more info about, Aindra Prabhu was kind of angry about that, and then he gave his offering, ended up being just an excerpt from his book, talking about how all of these different things you may do in Krishna consciousness or in the movement or throughout life, that you think you're supposed to be doing, in the end, if it's not helping you achieve that goal, to hell with it. And specifically, he was inspired from the excerpt in Krishna book where the coward boys and Krishna, they go to the brahmanas, and they're playing and they're hungry, and they say, "Can you guys feed us?" And the brahmanas are like, "Get out of here, we're like busy, during our ritualistic activities and yagyas and chanting mantras, like we don't have time to feed you guys." And so he was inspired by that part where you come to the understanding. The brahmanas came to understand that we were doing all this stuff, like, but what was the goal? We just didn't even realize that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was here asking for us to take care of him.
Wow.
And so in a personal way. And so I think he was trying to get to that point when Aindra Prabhu gave that offering. He was trying to show, to hell with all of these things. Like one that comes up to the top of my head is like the book distribution numbers. Like, it's all a numbers game. How many has this temple distributed this Christmas marathon? How many has that person distributed, et cetera, et cetera? We've distributed this many million. And his point was like, to hell with that numbers game. If your own members who are distributing, not but we as a society, if we are distributing these books but not reading them and understanding the true essence within them. So, but the management didn't give him that space to be able to express himself. because of either past experiences or whatever. But after that offering, everyone kind of just took it in the wrong way, and they actually talked about maybe kicking him out of the temple, etc. And I know he was just finishing his book, and he wanted to share it with the devotees, and they said, your book is too controversial, too esoteric, and if you do print and release it, we're gonna have to kick you out. Like, you can't live here. And so he was in a very difficult, deep state of hurt, and he was conflicted what to do. He's like, fused this whole offering of his inner heart, and he wants to share it with the devotees, and he's being told he's not allowed to. And so to me, what was a clear sign of his loyalty to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's temple, Krishna Balar Mandirs, he was like, I can't leave Radhe Shyam. I can't leave this 24-hour kirtan. This service has been given to me basically by Srila Prabhupada. I've come to that realization that this is my seva, and I can't leave. And so I guess I'll just have to not print my book. And to me, that really started the beginning of the end of his time in this material world. Whatever minimal attachment he had left in this material world started to be burned away when he showed that just like extreme commitment to being at the lotus feet of Radha Shyam Sundar and dressing them and doing kirtan for them. And like Braj Sundar shared, he said, Aindra Prabhu said that if they kick me out, then I'll go sit outside the gates in front, and the gate is directly in line from the outside gate of Krishna Balaram Mandir. If the doors are open, you can see Radha Shyam Sundar. And he said, I will sit out there and do kirtan for them. So when he expressed this, we understand that he was hurt by the reception of his god brothers and god sisters. But then when he expressed how, I'm going to do whatever they ask me because I don't want to leave this temple and this service, we understood like fully how loyal he was to Srila Prabhupada and how he was just really taking the humble position. And in that way, I think it gave us a lot of conviction, and no matter what happens to you, no matter who offends you or what will happen to you, that in the end, this is what we want to hold on to, is that service of singing for Radha Shyam Sundar. So I mean, I don't know where this came from, but it just like came out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I would like to add one thing. Aindra said something a few offerings before. I wasn't there, but one of his offering was the story of the Brahma Rakshasa, and he said he experienced that, and that Brahma Rakshasa was in the corner of his room and was laughing at him, and like he said, he chanted all these prayers. He even chanted Nrsimha prayers and everything. Nothing happened. And then he said that finally when he took shelter of his guru and he chanted Prabhupada's pranam mantra, the Brahma Rakshasa left. So that how powerful Prabhupada was. And man, that was like, I mean, I from a very young age, I know about Brahma Rakshasa and all those things. And I never thought about that your guru's mantra is so powerful. We always hear that Brahma Rakshasa are like these kind of things that you cannot get, nothing can go against them, But that was a very, very wonderful offering that Aindra Prabhu gave, and he always showed that how much he was for Prabhupada, what Prabhupada meant to him. Yeah.
I just really, really quickly wanted to share because I just literally the other day found my beautiful Aindra Prabhu calendar, and the first thing that I looked at and read was this excerpt from him. It's from an offering to Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of his Vyas Puja. This is from Aindra Prabhu. I was chanting Hare Krishna at the top of my lungs, walking directly side by side with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada turns to me and goes, Jai! So that is the only thing he ever said to me. But because he said that to me in relation to my engagement in Nam Sankirtan, I took it as a great inspiration for my whole life. Which way?
Yeah, that's good.
This way?
Yeah.
It's
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very clear to us, at least.
Mm.
Oh, Akincana.
You lost Akincana. He was going to say something. Radha Krishna, do you have anything to add to that?
About him being loyal to Prabhupada?
Yeah.
I mean,
or like, is there any question about it?
Loyalty, because, you know, each Prabhupada disciple has a different vision of the movement, kind of.
Right.
You know? So they can be saying that I'm loyal because I'm opening farms, you know, because I'm following the Varnashram Dharma, because I'm doing, you know, whatever, you know. But and it's fine, you know, it's all part of the thing. But Aindra Prabhu, I mean, it's like it's just, I don't even think this is a question. Like Aindra Prabhu was like loyalty personified, you know, like everything he did was for Prabhupada, you know. And if you understand the Siddhanta, you know, like you know that it's all, you know, on accordance to the Shastra, to what Prabhupada wanted. Maybe because he was too heavy for some, you know, maybe because he would follow Chaturmasya, or like chant lakhs of rounds, or like dress in a different way.
Right.
Like the other day Amal was saying, like, you have to develop your own relationship with Krishna. You cannot, like, you know, like, we're not clones, we're not robots that we all have, you know, the same tendencies or the same, you know, taste, you know, the same flavor. We all have different flavors, you know, of how, you know, we want Krishna to enjoy us. So, you know, I don't know, like loyalty, like Prabhupada gave so much, you know, like, and everyone is like, oh, like sometimes they feel like, oh, there's no compassion in this world. Like everything is right there, you know, like you just don't want to grab it. And he did, you know.
Yeah.
And he did, and he took it to heart, and he took it, and he went back to Godhead because of Prabhupada, you know, because his loyalty to Prabhupada. He didn't turn, you know, and oh, maybe this, whatever, you know, society has better, you know, things. Maybe this part of, you know, Vrindavan has better things. Maybe that part of Vrindavan has something greater to offer. Maybe there is, but like, you know, Prabhupada said, you know, like the whole, you know, spiritual wall is within, you know, the Krishna Balaram walls, you know.
Right.
So like, people cannot say he wasn't loyal because he spoke about this, or because he did that, or because to hell. Like, are you that sensitive that you cannot, you know, take to hell with this? It's true.
Yeah.
So, and you wanna like label him as like not loyal just because like he was speaking the truth for your own benefit, for maybe for you to wake up and, you know, realize, oh, maybe, you know, he's right, maybe we should, you know, prioritize the Yuga Dharma more in our temples, in our communities,
Right.
you know. So I think that the way the bodies took, I mean, especially that offering, it's like, it's not fair, you know. And it really from there, like Amal said, it just changed everything, you know. You know, like he said, it was like the beginning of the end, but not the end for him at least, the end for us, because Krishna is like, oh, you don't wanna, you don't wanna understand, my Aindra Prabhu, then I'm gonna take him. What happened? He did, and it was never like about like Aindra was like, it was never about him, Of course, it was about him, but like him trying to open our eyes, to the whole piece of cake that we have to, that is there, but like we're so lazy to grab. We're so like, we're so we have so many different agendas, so many different understandings of the philosophy. We have so many different paths of like, oh, maybe this way is better because it's comfortable, because it doesn't take that much responsibility, But the cake is there, and all you have to do is cut it and take it, to heart. And that's what he did, And what was his cake? Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's everything, everything Prabhupada. So you cannot tell that he wasn't loyal, because if he wasn't loyal, he would be in Radhakund, or he would be in Govardhan, or he would be in, like somewhere else. But he didn't. He stayed in, in his Krishna Malar Mandir, So you cannot label him as not loyal, because if anyone, he's like the most loyal person I ever met.
Yeah.
Well stated. Akincana, you wanted to add to that? Thanks, Radha Krsna.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of nice points were already made. There was one time when I was with him in his room, and the Krishna Balaram Mandir has gone through many different temple presidents, many different managers in the 40 some odd years it's been here, or I guess at the time it would have been 30 some odd years. So different managers, different temple presidents had different types of relationships with Aindra Prabhu. Some, I think, could be characterized as much more favorable, and some unfavorable. And so there was some years where he was feeling like the management was very unfavorable to him, and he was expressing a lot of frustration. Anyway, what he said to me was, he said, sometimes I think about taking the Kirtan party and and maybe moving out. We can find another ashram and do the Kirtan there, and we can just point the of Krishna Balaram and Radha Shyamsundar so that they can hear the Kirtan. He said he said something like that. Sometimes I think about that. He said, but I've decided, I've like made a vow that I will stay in the institution of my spiritual master for at least 50 years, so that when the day comes when I meet Srila Prabhupada again, I'll be able to say to him, well, Srila Prabhupada, at least I managed to stay in your institution for 50 years.
So nice.
Wow.
I was appreciated that. I liked Amal brought up the point that the story when Aindra Prabhu was in I think it was Baltimore at Potomac, and Aindra was leading kirtan, like a Guru Puja kirtan or a pre-Guru Puja kirtan, and Srila Prabhupada turned to him and said Jai, and so Aindra said that was like the whole impetus. For all of my everything I've done after that, the impetus was that I got a jai out of Srila Prabhupada when I was doing Harinam Sankirtan. So the whole point has been, how to get more jais out of Srila Prabhupada. One story that I heard is that at a certain point, maybe when Aindra Prabhu was in New York City in the early 80s, he was frustrated that the devotees were not going out and doing Harinam Sankirtan, that Harinam had become a a much, much less prominent feature of the Hare Krishna movement than it had been. And so he was kind of complaining about that, and he was frustrated and upset. And one of his godbrothers said to him, Aindra Prabhu, instead of complaining that the devotees aren't going out with you and doing Sankirtan, why don't you do Sankirtan in such a way that it's that people feel inspired, that people are like attracted, and that they feel inspired to go out with you. And so anyway, from what I understood, Aindra Prabhu really took that to heart as like being an instruction from his spiritual master. And I think, if you consider, Aindra's example, how he like embodied that instruction in such an incredible way. I mean, practically speaking, he like inspired the whole Hare Krishna movement with his like ecstatic style of Sankirtan. The whole movement has become like more enlivened to do Harinam Sankirtan, and I think Aindra is like, absolutely at the forefront of that wave of enthusiasm. So yeah, I mean, I think there's many things we could say about his fidelity and faith in Srila Prabhupada. Certainly he heard very, very thoroughly from Srila Prabhupada. One story that comes to mind, there was a devotee that went to Aindra Prabhu and he said, Aindra, how can I remember Vrindavan even if I'm not in Vrindavan? And so Aindra started answering the question by saying, well, there's a book, Vrindavan Mahimamrita, with so many beautiful descriptions of Vrindavan. And if you'll read that book, then you can always stay absorbed in kind of consciousness of Vrindavan. So he started by answering that way. And then he paused and he said, wait a second. Have you read all of Srila Prabhupada's books? And this particular devotee was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I kind of read parts of it or something. But it was like, his answer was like, it wasn't really that solid. And Aindra just started blasting him. He said, forget about Vrindavan Mahimamrita. He said, what are you doing in this ISKCON movement? What are you doing if you haven't read all of Srila Prabhupada's books? He said, I read all of Srila Prabhupada's books within my first 3 years in this Hare Krishna movement. The whole Bhagavatam, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the big books, all the small books, and even all the Back to Godhead magazines.
Wow.
I remember my friend Premamrita, he told me at one point he was on the night shift. And he, every night when he would come back at 1 a.m, we know Aindra kept an incredible odd schedule and he wouldn't sleep, for most of the night, oftentimes. He said every single night that I was walking by Aindra's room, coming back to the ashram after my night kirtan shift, Aindra was always listening to Srila Prabhupada's lectures. And there was one time I was in a car with Aindra. There was a devotee offered us to drive us to a program, nothing planned ahead of time. We went into the car and the devotee turns on his like CD player and a lecture of Srila Prabhupada comes on. And within the first 15 or 20 seconds, the first 1 or 2 sentences that Srila Prabhupada says, Aindra immediately says, oh, I love this lecture. This is the lecture where Prabhupada says this and this and this and this. And he was like, he had heard so thoroughly from Srila Prabhupada that he knew everything that was in the lecture, that was in this kind of random person CD player. So, and anyway, just the fact that, this 24-hour kirtan, it was an incredibly important service that Srila Prabhupada really wanted to establish. And, maybe people take it for granted now, but if you can hear from the older devotees that were there in Vrindavan, it wasn't easy. and they weren't able to maintain it until Aindra came and was able to and he fully dedicated himself to it. And, beyond that, he made it something like ecstatic. He developed a style of kirtan that, was attractive to devotees from all over the world. And, and it's somehow still going today. And, it's like the Krishna Balaram Mandir is like a magical place because of that kirtan. It's, for all the different temples in Vrindavan, our Krishna Balaram Mandir is like, it's one of the most happening places, and it's in no small part because of that 24 kirtan. So it's genius that Prabhupada wanted that kirtan, and it's completely to Aindra's credit that it exists.
Mm.
And sorry, I just one more thing. Just I'm reminding myself. There was one time. I don't know if this story is going to come out right, but there was one time where Aindra was telling me about, there's different types of kirtan. He said there's a type of kirtan that's like the Maharas Leela, where you're doing kirtan with all kinds of people, and then there's the more intimate Ras Leela that is more exclusive, like to Radharani and her friends. And so some kirtan, it's like when you're doing it with a close-knit group, and then there's another type of kirtan where you're trying to engage all kinds of people from the public and things like that. And so what I said, Aindra Prabhu, you're very lucky because even though you're doing the kind of kirtan like the Maharas Leela type of kirtan, because there's all kinds of pilgrims always coming through the Krishna Balaram Mandir, so you're doing kirtan with all kinds of new people and strangers and like that. I said you're very lucky because you're able to do kirtan kind of in a more intimate way, because you have your group of people with you that support you. So you can do kind of like more exotic, deep melodies and styles and ways of developing your kirtan, even though it's with all kinds of people. So I used that word. I said, you're lucky. and Indra said, yeah, I guess you could say, it's luck that that we're doing kirtan this way. I think I'm telling this story wrong. He said, but actually, it is by the determination of one man that we have what we have here today. Mm. So, I mean, how many devotees, however dedicated to Prabhupada, have stayed living in the brahmachari ashram of an ISKCON temple throughout their entire life? That's a rare thing. That's a phenomenal thing. And he's someone that was able to do that. I think anyway. After spending a long time with Aindra, at one point I was with my guru and something that we were discussing, and my guru just laughed at me. He said, "Aindra made you such a fanatic." In other words, he was joking that my level of trust and faith and in Srila Prabhupada, it really changed as a result of my association with Aindra. So how would that be possible if Aindra himself is not exceptionally faithful to Srila Prabhupada?
Right.
Just wanted to add one.
Go ahead.
What Akincana was saying about the books, and Aindra Prabhu also said about his book, and he said that before you read my book, you should read all of Srila Prabhupada's book. And many people feel like, oh, it's a controversial book, so let's read it first. Many people get on that wagon. But Aindra Prabhu himself said, first read all Prabhupada books, otherwise you will not understand my book. Yeah. So yeah.
A lot of right. Thank you. Thank you. So you were saying basically after that 2009 offering, it was a kind of a shift in his. I mean, he left this world in 2010, so there was a shift basically in his thinking a little bit, and he got into more his own sadhana and everything. Right after that, after all that happened.
I think he was very disturbed. That was one thing. So he this is like that summer was very intense. Not many people were there. I think there was like
summer.
The 2010 summer when everybody had gone. Even like I remember Martanda was singing alone the 1 to 4 no, not 1 to 4, 10 to 1 shift all alone.
Right.
And he used to like call all the pilgrims to sit and play some instrument in the day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean he was like he was having hard time with other members, but at the same time there was like hardly like 10 people in the ashram. That was, I think, the least amount of devotees in the ashram. I would, it's 2000 and 2009 I've seen. And he was very internal, and like he was mostly like I don't think there was much of a.
Were any of us that that last Radha Kund visit? I wasn't there, but I heard from Gopal Prabhu that they went to he was going to Radha Kund, and maybe like 5-6 other devotees wanted to go with him. And he said he was kind of reluctant, but then he said, okay, you can come as long as no one talks. And the whole way he was just chanting japa, and he took bath in Radha Kund. He had his Giriraj Shila, and it was like that, very solemn. He was going inwards. I wasn't there, but you can see from the pictures as well. But that Purushottam, that was his last Purushottam Mas, was the April-May. I left in March, but I heard afterwards what an intense Purushottam Mas it was, and how he obviously went really deeply, as if he knew it was his last Purushottam Mas.
Can't really tell.
Right. There's a lot of devotees who are very inspired by Aindra Prabhu, like younger devotees who didn't get to meet him. So what would you say or advise them to how to follow Aindra Prabhu? Like if they are very inspired by him and they want to follow him, what would you say? Because sometimes the tendency is that one can speak very strongly, but like you said, Kirtan Premi, you have to walk the talk. You can't just you can't speak like him, but at the same time not act like him, So what would you advise to be to someone who wants to be his follower? Or because he's a very influential person, we can say that, right? So
I think I think people should not imitate him, but follow him. Many times people try to dress up like him.
Right, there's a difference of that
in those like two things, right? Or do the hadi, all that like him. Don't imitate him. Be yourself. And he has given he has like presented a style, or
I think like the most important thing that we've been kind of saying about what he was giving was about being an individual and finding your individual offering to Krishna. Like Radha Krishna said, that like we all have something unique to offer for Krishna to enjoy. So it's not that it's not that you just like sing in his style, then Krishna will be happy with you because you sound like Aindra Prabhu. But it's like the principle behind it. It's like the amount of kirtan he's doing and the mood he's doing it by way of engaging, so many people, whoever they are, whatever they're into.
But yeah, I think one of the things that Aindra Prabhu told me, and it's my instruction, but I if anybody can take can use it or benefit from it also. And because I was having a hard time doing kirtan, and when I was doing kirtan, it didn't really connect. It just felt very superficial with all the alankars and alaps and all the structures and everything, and
Just kind of technical.
yeah, it becomes mechanical, technical, So I went to him and I asked him, like, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
Like how you feel, you can actually feel the mood. But I don't feel anything. And the first question he asked me is like, how is your sadhana? Right? How is your chanting? And I said, it's not really that good. And he said, what he said, Sankirtan and Nama Sankirtan needs to be like this. They need to be equal. They should not be one low, one high. He said you should have the same amount of, like, if you do 16 rounds of japa, you should have like some
equivalent
amount
like 2
of
hours of
kirtan.
I don't know.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting point.
Yeah, he said that you should have, and it's like one is your private relationship and one is your public relationship. And the public relationship will only be expressed how private you, like, how internally you are.
How well your private relationship.
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't have like perfect memory. But he said how you are internally would come out like that if you are, so that's why you need to do your sadhana well. If your sadhana is good, then your kirtan would be good too. Not just in the sense. And one of the other instructions that he was saying that he said that don't do kirtan for public pleasure. He said you do kirtan for Radha Shyam. And if you it's like he gave you an analogy of, if you put water in the roots, then all the leaves then you don't have to worry about every, like, oh, branch, which is distraction. So he said that better just focus on the devotees and do kirtan for them. So then so if somebody can benefit, it was personal, but I think it's a very general kind of instruction that he gave.
I mean, I wish somehow I had been able to record it in my last interaction with him when he spoke to me. There were quite a few other devotees around, so I would probably be good to try and see if they remember as well. Like Ram Roy Prabhu was there.
I was there.
Yeah, Akincana Krishna Prabhu was there. Chaitanya Prakash, Damodar Astakam. My father was there. I think Sughosh was there. But the overall gist of his like last instructions to me was in that similar understanding of just wherever I go, to try and do kirtan with the highest goal in mind. First of all, do kirtan as much as you can, as much as possible in your daily life. And the mood behind doing that kirtan, it should be very like an arrow, one pointed, and that should just be for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And just like he said, through, like, just if you want to hit the target, like, you'll get the reward or whatever. So anything else that you're worried about, and he gave other talks about this that are recorded about doing kirtan with that high aim, and how everything else will be taken care of. He said to me, I remember him saying the words bhukti and mukti. He said, although we don't aspire for liberation, but or material wealth or opulences, but he said by just doing kirtan, trying to attain bhakti, all of these other things are included. And he said to me, they'll come with their hands folded to you. So basically, just do sankirtan with the highest goal in mind. And he said to me, all these other things that you're worried about in life will be taken care of. And he also has a nice story about how he said just do kirtan.
Vrindavan, and Radharani will take care.
Yeah, Radharani will take care of you. And there's so many stories. He himself, out of money, out of ghee for cooking for his deities, and that very day someone comes in with what he needs to serve his deities. And so, I mean, I can say personally, I've tried to follow those instructions, at least when it comes to the mood and purpose behind when I do kirtan, and I'm experiencing it firsthand in my life ever since he left, where like Krishna's taking care of me in a very mystical, magical way. Like I may not have faith in Krishna myself, and even Srila Prabhupada, so to say, because I haven't understood all his books and everything, but because I love Aindra Prabhu and I know I have faith in his words, and because I know he loves Krishna, I feel like what he spoke to me, like almost like Krishna has to fulfill his instruction to me, almost like, well, because Aindra Prabhu told Amal that if he does kirtan in this mood, he'll be taken care of, then I have to, so it's seriously almost, it's like that. Like I just have faith in his words, and it's hard, but I experienced that, so it's just really magical and he talked all about how Krishna wants us to be dependent on him. And it's such an interesting, it's not interesting, but it's not preached in our movement, but it's actually the highest, it's all through Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans about Krishna being your maintainer and everything. And coming to that understanding is very high, actually, but he was saying it's like one of the most basic, simple things to try to take is just learning to, do Sankirtan and have Krishna be your maintainer, and you're dependent on him throughout life. And it doesn't matter like if Grihasta, Brahmachari, Sannyasi, Vanaprastha, your Varna, whatever. But he spoke to me like that. And so that's some of the instructions that he gave that others can try and follow if they have that faith.
Wow. Amazing. Very, very, very deep realization. Radha Krishna, what about you? Like, what would you say to someone who, I mean, you had so much association with him, you more than everyone, from whatever, 2005 all the way. So you were with him for so long. So what would you say to someone who wants to also, follow him?
I mean, it's all about Prabhupada, It's like when you realize that what am I doing things for, What do I want to get out of, following Aindra Prabhu, or like following Prabhupada, or like my sadhana, or like my actions. Like, you cannot say I will follow Aindra because it's not right, Aindra Prabhu is like very, very advanced and high, but like you have to understand that he was following Prabhupada. So this is not Aindra's moment, don't take it that way, because then you're misconceiving things, It's it was not, Aindranized things, it wasn't Aindra's movement, it wasn't Aindra's, cult, everything. It's not a cult, it's not Aindra's cult, it's all, like we said, mentioned before, it was all according to what Prabhupada wanted, So first you have to understand that.
Great point.
You can follow Aindra Prabhu, but you have to understand that Prabhupada, it's always, like Aindra Prabhu was like inspired by Prabhupada. So there's two different, it's dangerous,
Yes.
Two different roads. So, and then after you realize that, then you have to, like Kirtan Premi said, don't imitate Aindra Prabhu. You know, don't dress like him. Don't try to understand. Don't try to repeat the things he said without understanding and realizing what they mean. You know, because I can tell you right now, oh, Aindra Prabhu said this, but that was Aindra Prabhu, and he realized these things. You know, so by quoting Aindra Prabhu, you don't become any advanced. Maybe it helps you to understand that, oh, this is the way, and you know, but you have to have your personal relationship, like Amal said, you know. Then I mean, if you want to really like connect with Aindra Prabhu, then you have to do things with purity, you know. You don't have to, like, when, for example, when I came to Vrindavan, and I was like, you know, because I, you know, became like good at kartals and whatever. So like I was learning from Adiras and Bhakta Greg. I was always looking at them and kind of being envious, you know, like Aindra Prabhu loves them so much because they're so good at it, you know, because they can deliver what he wants, because they can do like things that like, wow, you know. So I was like, how can I become like that, you know? How can Aindra Prabhu notice me? How can he like me? How can he, like Amal mentioned before, how can he want me, you know, like how can he need me, you know?
Right.
Like you wanted to be like no matter, do whatever you know you could do to like, you know, have his attention, have his love, have his care, have his, you know, like his compassion, you know, on you, you know. So then because this envy, you know, like you just transform it, you know, into something else, you know, to some, like into love, you know, kind of thing. Like if I want Aindra Prabhu to notice me, then I have to be a good example. You know, I have to do a good taran. I have a good taran. I have to be not in his level, because I will never be, but like on that path, you know. Like if you want, it's like the bumblebees. Like when they, you know, go smelling the flowers and they have no scent, they go away. You know, I don't want to be like this scentless flower. But then if you like, you know, if you become full of like, you know, knowledge and all these things, then you start, you know, you start to smell good, you know. Then you're noticed, you know. So I wanted that, you know, I wanted Aindra Prabhu to like, to be like, I wanted to be part of his, you know, his thing, you know. And then but it want, like I said, I tried in different ways, but it didn't work, you know, trying to imitate this guy, how he plays, or try to imitate, like, you know, like anything, you know, like little things, you know, for him to like notice me more, you know.
Yeah.
Because I like, for me he was like I don't know, like I don't know, I cannot describe like how much he meant, you know, for me. But the things I saw, the things I heard, you know, like how he took care of Aduras when he was like, you know, when he fell from, you know, Radha Krsna because of his epilepsy attack. All these things like made me realize that, you know, like Aindra Prabhu is another level, you know. And then if I really want to be a good follower, be a good, you know, a good per se, not disciple, but like, you know, good devotee in general, you know, I have to understand that Prabhupada has given us everything, you know, that Prabhupada has come to this place, you know, to give out compassion for everyone, you know. And if we don't take that, if we betray that gift, then we're betraying ourselves, you know, because there's nothing else, there's nothing higher, you know, there's nothing, you know, more beautiful than to follow what Prabhupada came to give. And it happens that Aindra Prabhu did it. And we didn't meet Prabhupada. our parents did, but that's their understanding of how like that's their highlights of their lives,
Right.
having a relationship with Prabhupada, serving Prabhupada, all these things for Prabhupada. But Aindra Prabhu had that for us, He was a Prabhupada disciple, but he was like our Prabhupada, kind of thing, because because he was like all like everything was like so pure, so beautiful, so heavy, so perfect, so like you live in like in another world with him. And then if you want to follow Aindra Prabhu, you have to understand that this is, it's not a cheap thing, like he used to say, like it's not a cheap thing that, to want Krishna, to try to reach Krishna. So you can be doing kirtan, you can be, preaching, but you have to understand that your purity has to be strong. Your kirtan has to be backed up by your sadhana, by so many things that need to, like, otherwise, like you said, like you're just making noise,
Mm.
And then like personally, and it's like this is like the way I've been, I've survived, without him physically, is that I just every morning pretty much, or any during the day, like I close my eyes and I just like find myself in Vrindavan, like next to him, or like in his room, or like just like even seeing him walk, like I find myself there, and then I think to myself, I tell to myself, this is what I want. This is what I want to experience again. It's like a filter to my life, to my actions. Like, first you have to be a good devotee, you have to do all these things, but not because you have to, because you want to reach that place again, like. So when you find yourself, like, I know like so many devotees from Delhi, they love Aindra Prabhu so much, they all used to come, they used to like from Delhi, from everywhere in the world, and they all wanted a piece, of the cake, like we all did. And they trying so hard, like to come from Delhi, to do kirtan, like because they have work, because everyone has their own agenda, like I said, and it's fine, because like you have to be responsible as well. But the main thing is that anything you do won't be enough if you don't add sankirtan to it. It's just like it's something is missing.
Mm.
And he was given that, like whatever you do, do kirtan. You have to work in Delhi for 10 hours. Try to do kirtan as much as you can. You have to go back to Roshan, like do this and that, like, but do kirtan. But not just kirtan, just not voice, like noise, and like, like you have to make your kirtan so pure that you can actually do something for Prabhupada movement, that you can attract people, to this pure, movement, because it's a pure movement, So, sometimes we think that, we don't have enough skills in kirtan. We don't have a pretty voice. We cannot play mrinanga, or like that's secondary, like you said. Like you can clap your hands and go in the streets, but if your heart is full of purity and like the right
Intention.
intention, then what else do you need? So if you want to be close to Aindra Prabhu, then you have to understand that it's all, everything comes, it's like hand to hand, your sadhana, your kirtan, your actions, everything. And then Krishna will, you eventually will, like realize things and, go through things, but he will always be, it will always be that connection that you want to have with Aindra Prabhu, and he will, appear to you. He will send someone to you, like, to help you out. And that's what I do. Like, we're here in New York, and the only thing that helps him is what I said, closing my eyes and going back to Vrindavan and feeling safe, feeling powerful, feeling, invincible next to him. It's not that. Also, like, what you can do, like, support your Harinam, support your, local Harinam, you support your temple. We have Ram Roy Prabhu here, ever since Aindra Prabhu left, he came here, to do Harinam as an offering for Aindra Prabhu. So, like, you can say, oh, I love Aindra Prabhu, I love Prabhupada, I'm from ISKCON, but, like, are you really? Like, what are you doing to, like, have that title? Are you going out to the streets? Are you helping out your local Harinam? Are you going to the temple to wash some pots, to clean, the floors? Or just giving donations and you think you're gonna go back to Godhead? It's not like that, So, we have so much facility.
Aindra Prabhu gave us the perfect example by doing every single seva that you could, and someone asked, what was that GBC title he said?
Google bathroom cleaner.
Yeah. What did he say? I'm
Great bathroom cleaner.
yeah.
Bathroom cleaner.
But yeah, Madhava Prabhu tells great stories about Aindra Prabhu engaging him in toilet cleaning seva. But it's like that. He used to say there's no high or low, service in the spiritual world. So in Krishna consciousness, we have to have that same mentality he spoke about many times.
True.
Wow. Well said. Radha Krishna. Amala, thank you.
Thank you, Radha.
Kincha,
Just a little thing, but
yeah.
No, I mean, I said just a little thing. I think I went all over and, like, I don't really know what I said.
It was perfect.
No, it was great. It was from the heart.
It's like at the end, like I said, like, what do you want from this movement? Do you want fame? You want to do kirtan for this, for that? Like, what do you want?
What's your motivation?
And perhaps we all go through that, because we don't understand that, because it's a process, like, it has to come, eventually will come. But, and I'm not judging, I'm not criticizing, I'm not trying to put anyone down, like, I'm just, saying what I saw, and I saw the perfect example, the highest example,
Right.
So for me to come down to that, it's a little hard, because it's like you have the highest thing, and then of course you can appreciate, everyone is doing service, everyone is trying to take, on Mahaprabhu's mission, everyone is trying to preach, but there's always so much you can do, you can do more,
right?
Because we have so much facility, we have so much service, we have, like he said, Prabhupada movement is complete, it's so complete that you cannot even, like, understand how complete it is, but we, like, kind of, like, put a wall between us and that, because we're scared, or because we're lazy, or because we don't even understand, like. But examples like him, that's our example for us, so just
Akincana, I just googled Vrindavan time. It's like 1:45 a.m. or something crazy.
Yeah, I saw somebody apologize and said,
please add
I'm
something.
following
You need
Aindra
to-
right
if
now
you
by
need to
staying
drop.
up all night.
Please add something. How can one follow Aindra Prabhu?
Yeah. I just have an anecdote. One senior devotee went to Aindra Prabhu and was kind of complaining to him a little bit. And he said, Aindra, these days, I've spoken to some of these young kids, and they say, we don't chant japa, we just do kirtan. We're following Aindra Prabhu. And and Aindra Prabhu said to that devotee, he said, "You know me better than that. I never preach such nonsense. I'm chanting 116 rounds every day. If someone wants to say that they're following me, at least they can chant their 16 rounds."
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, I love how what Radha Krishna said. Following Srila Prabhupada, I think we can take so much inspiration from the example of Aindra Prabhu, and I think many of the devotees that are now following Aindra, I think we can take so much inspiration from them as well. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Ram Roy Prabhu. He's done absolutely phenomenal service, out of his love for Aindra Prabhu. And I think, right there's everything you need to know. Look at Ram Roy. And you can see what it means to be an empowered, beautiful follower of Aindra Prabhu, or Mala. The contribution that he's made, the dedication that he has. I think that's it's tremendous. It's tremendous what he's done. And then so many good people that have dedicated to 24-hour kirtan. I mean, the list is long. Govinda Prabhu, who's now, in charge of the party, look at his dedication for so long. Gopal, Vrindavan, all the years and the sacrifice that they put in. Bhagavat Purana still going strong.
I mean, all of you as well. You all are, the amount of kirtan you all are doing, traveling and preaching and things like that. I mean, this is a part of the beauty of Aindra Prabhu's legacy, is all of you saying, speaking his stories and his glories and things, but also following through and trying to share what his real instructions were and his ideas were, and how to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions of what the ISKCON movement was about. Sorry to interject there, but I wanted to give you guys kudos as well.
Yeah, I mean, personally, when I think of what I feel Aindra would have expected from me, I feel I fall very, very, very far short of that. But in any case, whatever it is, I still love Aindra Prabhu, and you can just try according to my very limited, humble capacity, according to my very fallen, conditioned nature, try to make some kind of contribution. But again, I'm like looking up and having great respect for so many of the people that I see that are really inspired, incredible examples.
Right.
So I feel like you want to follow Aindra Prabhu, you can look around and see how some other guys are, or not just guys, how some other devotees are doing that, and you can learn tremendous amount.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, we're at 2 hours and 18 minutes, and I like to just perhaps end it here with going around and just maybe some closing words about what he means to you, like from the heart, what he means to you, not just stories, but from your own personal experience. Kirtan Premi, if you want to start.
I think I always hungered for a person of substance. And growing up in Bombay, which is like the heart of bureaucracy in ISKCON, I always looked for.
Shots fired.
I always looked for like pureness, and I grew up in Bombay. I will tell you, it's all about who has the best life member, who can earn the most money for the temple. I know it's all important. We just had our temple, what do you call, 43rd anniversary.
Mm.
And I'm not saying somebody's service is menial or somebody is more less important, you know. Just for me, because it's about me personally.
Yeah.
I always felt to find a person, not only just who walks the talk, but also is like try to be more uh, uh, like in a sense simplicity.
Yeah.
You know, simple chanting, simple living, simple. That's, you know, I think everybody tries to find, you know, and I found that with Aindra Prabhu. And he was such an amazing person in that. Uh, I that's one thing I loved about Vrindavan is that I found people like that, like Aindra Prabhu, like Kurmaruba Prabhu. They're all simple devotees who are like they're realizing the highest by doing simple service. You know,
Right.
not by like doing something that's like, you know, takes PhDs and, you know. So I'm very grateful for him, uh, because I think music was something I was always around, always surrounded. Music and arts was like always around me, and I was looking for it all around, everywhere. I was more into like my way of preaching and doing things for Prabhupada was I wanted to get a drum set. I was like on that with my father.
And a drum set.
And I wanted to be part of a rock band with my school friends. I wanted, you know, one friend will play bass and guitar, and I was, you know, we were gonna make spiritual songs, and you know, I was inspired by the 108 band and Titikshva Karunika, and you know, all these bands. They would, a few glimpses here and there would come. So I was very inspired by music, and I kept looking into that world. I was going for to concerts of like metalheads, and you know, and my father, by Krishna's mercy, always kept me away from there because there was bad association. So I am very grateful to him, and then, but music was always around, and I kept looking everywhere for it, and I just didn't realize that it was right under my nose. It was right there. Kirtan was our day-to-day thing. But like what Akincana Prabhu was saying, how it was in Tuaco, just like, you know, but then you come to Vrindavan and you experience the full charge of it, like, you know, the beauty of it, and you can see it in this way. Like, oh, that makes sense. That's beautiful. Like, you know.
Right.
So I am very, very like. I'm very grateful that that Aindra Prabhu encouraged me in that way. He gave me that service, and for me, I think I am who I am because of him. I cannot give credit to anybody for who I am. Um, and the thing I would say is that I'm just burning my good karmas, and one day, you know, to actually follow Aindra Prabhu, it'll take lifetimes. So I've just begun. So for me to actually follow all the things that he has said, it will take a long time for me, and I'll keep coming to you know, realize one thing after the other. So, and I always am very grateful for him to engage me where I had a very rough time being labeled and pushed away. as you don't have any service. You can't do anything. You're like useless. That's what. So I and doing kirtan and just doing kirtan. I never had this vision. I never in my wildest dream had this idea. Oh, we'll travel around the world and we'll go to South Africa and go to Australia and go to America and do kirtan. Never was the whole idea was to just be there with Aindra Prabhu, sit and do kirtan because that's what we like to do. But then it's just happening. It's all Aindra Prabhu's mercy, and it just like in Krishna's, Prabhupada's, and Aindra Prabhu's mercy. Prabhupada made this beautiful house that I can just move from one room to the other and do the same service. So I'm really grateful to that, and I think if Aindra Prabhu wouldn't have been there, I would have taken a whole different route and would have been very skeptical about my growing in Krishna consciousness. So I'm really serious. I had really rough patches. My trust, my everything was destroyed. In the like my faith was destroyed, my trust was destroyed, and I think a pure servant like him can only help a person like me to come out and be on this line. And sometimes people feel like, oh, they give so much respect. I was like, it's like you do kirtan, so you're pure. It's we've been through I have been through a lot to come to this, and I think the only person who could like get the gunk off me and clean me off, that's Aindra Prabhu, and I'm really grateful for him
Beautiful.
to do that.
Amal?
I've been like thinking about what to say, and along the same note of gratitude, in the time I was living there, I remember someone who was living in America posted on Facebook. It was kind of like a question, and they said, I wonder if Srila Prabhupada would be happy with all the young men going to Vrindavan and just doing kirtan, or would he be happier if they stayed in the West and went to school and entered society as responsible, career-based men, and then shared Krishna consciousness in that setting, rather than kind of running away from your responsibilities and your problems to go join the 24-hour kirtan. And it just really it kind of hurt me a lot, because I felt like they were referring to me. And looking back, I can 100% say that Srila Prabhupada would be happy with my choice. And I know that because his pure servant was happy with me for making that choice. And when it was time for me to leave Vrindavan, it was very hard. I was very emotional. And Aindra Prabhu was very happy to see it being hard for me to leave. And he was happy to see me crying to leave. And he said, I'm really glad, Amal, because that means you've started to understand a little bit about what Vrindavan means. So to me, it's like in my time there with him, every single day that I got to do kirtan with him, I never felt unfulfilled. I never felt like, and I know everyone else who did kirtan with him can say the same thing, that they never felt like they needed to be anywhere else in the world doing anything else. And so I can just really say that with conviction now, that I am just so glad that somehow I had the intelligence and inspiration to go in his final few years and just take advantage of his association. Because I know there's so many devotees crying because they didn't get that chance, like actually devastated. I know you, Namras, were planning to go, while he was still there, and you came just 1-2 months after he left, and you yourself, served so nicely for, like, what is it, a year and a half, 2 years,
Yeah.
so I just don't ever want to take that for granted, what he gave to me, in that sense of trying to really reside in Vrindavan, at least, if not physically, mentally, and then the ability to share that with others, like he's saying, like, doing kirtan is not a sign of purity, and I make no such claim that I'm doing kirtan in its truest form, in the way it's meant to be performed, but I know that kirtan is what gives you all these things we're looking for. I know that for a fact. And so I just try to do kirtan with that similar mood of giving that Aindra Prabhu gave to me and gave to us. And so I'm really grateful for that, and that's what he means to me.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Radha Krishna?
That's a hard question. What he means to me. I mean, imagine coming like blind into this already dark world, and like doing all this nonsense and whatnot, and then you come in touch with this full moon, this bright, beautiful, perfect, pure moon, and then it's like your judgment day, like you it goes through you, like, and it takes everything from you, like all the bad, and then the moon keeps on like guiding you in so many different ways, and then she was like what I felt was that I came to Vrindavan, and then it was like, since the moment I saw him, and I started to feel love for him, I knew that I was gonna be hurt like anything, when he left. Somehow I knew it, like I knew that this is gonna be one of the hardest things for me to handle in my life. I don't know why I felt that. So he was like, yeah, he was our general, and then everything he, his example, and like the way he wanted us to like do our sadhana, and like everything was like, it was like for us to show him during his kirtan, it's like you've been training for so long, every single day, since the morning, since Mangal Artik till his kirtan, and then in his kirtan you're actually gonna show who you are, what you've been learning in Vrindavan, what your day has been like in Vrindavan, and every day, because he's, driving the boat, every day you can stay further, or you can go, or be on the same pace, so he was the captain, and he was like, the boat was going, every day in Vrindavan, and I felt like I didn't want to stay behind, never, because imagine that, like staying behind, and he's going ahead without me. So he really he transformed my heart, into something else. He made me realize so many things. So he made me realize how fallen I was, how useless I was, how everything, and then replaced everything for a goal, So when he left, it's okay, what's I still cannot conceive, the fact that he's not here. I haven't digested, I haven't thought about it, I haven't given it thought, deep enough, because then if I do, then I'm gonna fall into an abyss and never, get out of it. But I don't really think that he's gone, because I know that he's behind the pillars looking after us, he's maybe in Times Square, looking after us, looking after his Radha Prabhu and his everyone. So it's just that you have fun, or maybe, you have been given this form of compassion and mercy in him, from Krishna, from Prabhupada. Like I said before, if you want compassion, you have it there, right there. So he gave me that, and to my family, my sisters, everyone. He was very merciful to us. He was always so caring, always so yeah, but this is the most this common thing about the high thing that he means for me is that he's my link, to Krishna. He really sometimes I think about it, I don't know Krishna at all,
Right.
I don't understand Krishna. I don't know anything about Krishna, but I know Aindra Prabhu, he's pure devotee, and even if I don't get to see Krishna, at the end of my life, I want to see him, then maybe he'll introduce me to Krishna. Maybe he'll be merciful enough to say, okay, he tried, when he's not, we're not here to try, Prabhupada didn't come here for us to try or to be to do he came for us to really get, up there. So he means, yeah, everything to me. I cannot express myself because this
No, you're expressing yourself perfectly.
my heart is, it's too close about these things, I really this is the first time I actually talk about Aindra Prabhu as long, per se. And perhaps I'm not too deep or too, clear about it, but it's I cannot tell you what he means to me because it's a dealing, it's dealings of my heart, and perhaps they want to stay there, because
We're getting a glimpse of it. We're getting a glimpse of it for sure. Of your heart. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha.
I know it's like something that's so deep and something so private, but you're bringing it out, and it takes a lot of bravery to do that. And I really appreciate that. And I think all the devotees watching really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that I cannot really be like too clear about it, but
No, you
it's
don't.
really, it's really, really, really difficult for me to be open about him. You know, so many devotees all the time ask me about him, and like I just freeze somehow. Like I cannot, you know,
Right.
it's too precious, you know, too valuable, it's too like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he means everything to me.
Beautiful. Akincana.
That was great, Radha. I guess I can just say, Aindra he's the most important person I've ever met. He left an indelible impression on me. I have full respect for him as an unparalleled, exceptional Vaishnav. And what was incredible is he had the quality that he would extend himself to people, and even like have friendly relationships with people, and somehow he was very kind to me, and I got a huge amount of love from him. And yeah, so losing him has it's been like losing a saint, and losing like a best friend. And it's like a guide that really cares about you, and what's more valuable than that? And so yeah, I think about Aindra all the time. I have all kinds of all my little quirky memories. I don't know if anybody else, if it means anything to anybody else, but I think about all kinds of interactions I had with him, all kinds of things he said to me. He gave me some of the most important advice of my life. A lot of the instructions he gave to me, even some things he said, it's taken years, even after his departure, for me to kind of appreciate the value of some of the things he kind of said to me, the way he instructed me and advised me. Yeah, so Aindra is he means everything. He's like, the North Star or something, like a guiding light in life. And I feel very grateful for whatever opportunity I had to spend with him. I regret not having taken more and fuller advantage when I did have that opportunity.
Beautiful. Well, there you have it, folks. That's episode 40 of the Late Morning Program. Thank you so much, you all, for doing this. I know this was, difficult for some of you, but also I think the wider body of devotees need to know these things, like more about people's personalities, like about, they can listen to his lectures and they can hear his kirtans, but about who he was from people who knew him, I think is a very valuable thing. And I want to do this more with other devotees who knew him as well, other older devotees who knew him, such as Ram Roy Prabhu, Gopal Prabhu, Vrindavan Prabhu, Govinda Prabhu, whoever wants to do that. But again, my gratefulness to you, my friends, for coming on and doing this. Akincana, especially. It's, I don't know, what, 3 a.m. now in Vrindavan. What's that?
MVP.
Yeah, most valuable Prabhuji. Yeah. So in the chat, I'm going to put the we're doing a fundraiser for the Late Morning Program for 2021, just to cover different costs that we have here at the show. So if you could just please, whoever's listening, if you want to throw a little bit of a donation, please do that. Go to that website. Go to the Late Morning show. That's our website. Please like, share, subscribe, and again, I will do this more. I love hearing from devotees about other devotees. My takeaway from this is that Krishna consciousness is so alive in devotees, and find a devotee, like just how these Prabhus did. Find a devotee who inspires you, serve them, take shelter of them, and your life will be changed forever, just the way your all lives were changed by Aindra Prabhu's association. So I think that the movement that Prabhupada started has so many wonderful devotees that we can all take inspiration from, and this is one such devotee, Aindra Prabhu. And so we are so inspired by him, and we're so thankful, and he lives still in his devotees' hearts and his followers' hearts, and we are able to get a glimpse of him by hearing from them. So I just wanted to end with that. You guys stay on a little bit longer when I'll stop the live. But thank you for listening, and Haribol, Hare Krishna. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
People.
Jai Shri Radhe.
Jai Shri Radhe Shyam.
Shyam.